Ever wonder how the busiest websites you use every single day handle millions of visitors without even breaking a sweat? Well, a lot of the time, the secret weapon is a tool called HAProxy. It's basically the internet's master traffic controller. But with great power comes great responsibility. Today, we're going to walk through how to turn your HAProxy setup from just a simple front door into an absolutely impenetrable fortress.
So let's just take a second to appreciate what we're talking about here. HAProxy isn't just some random piece of software. It's the high-performance engine trusted by the absolute giants of the web. We're talking GitHub, Reddit, Stack Overflow. When you push your code, scroll through endless memes, or find that one answer to a tricky coding problem, HAProxy is very likely the thing in the background making it all happen seamlessly. It's one of the invisible backbones of the modern internet.
Okay, so we've established that HAProxy is the powerful main gateway to your entire application. It's your digital front door. But that leads to the one single most important question. Is that door actually locked, or is it just swinging wide open for anyone to wander through?
So here's our blueprint for building this fortress. First, we're going to lay a totally unshakable foundation. Then, we'll build up the defensive walls. After that, we need to post some vigilant guards on the towers. And finally, we'll talk about why a fortress is never really done, because defense is an ongoing process.
Every strong fortress has to be built on solid bedrock. For HAProxy, that bedrock is really about two things: trusting where your code comes from and operating with the absolute least privilege possible. If you mess up these foundational steps, honestly, every other defense you build on top is going to be on shaky ground from the start.
Think about this for a second. Your security is on the line before a single person even visits your site. First, you've absolutely got to install HAProxy from a trusted, verified source. That's a high-severity issue right there. But the second step, it's critical. Never, ever run HAProxy as the root user. Why? Well, if an attacker finds even a tiny flaw, running as root gives them the keys to your entire kingdom. This one choice is literally the difference between a small problem and a total catastrophe.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On the left, that's the wrong way. User root is like a king with keys to the entire castle. One breach and it's game over. But on the right, that's the smart way. We create a dedicated HAProxy user and lock it inside what's called a truth jail. You've basically put the process in a secure room. It can do its job, but it can't just wander around the castle and get into trouble.
All right, our foundation is solid. Now, it's time to build the walls. This is where we get really specific about what comes in and out of our fortress. We're going to do that by hardening the network, beefing up our encryption, and reinforcing the very language of the web itself, HTTP.
I love this slide because it shows such a simple change that has a massive security impact. See that config on the left, every space :443? That tells HAProxy to listen for traffic on every single digital doorway the server has, including private ones that are only for you. That's a huge risk. The secure way, on the right, is to tell it exactly which public IP address to listen on. It's like telling your guard to only watch the front gate, not every single window and back door.
Okay, let's talk encryption. And listen up, because this part is critical. Using old, outdated encryption is like trying to send a secret message across a rotted, crumbling bridge. It's just not going to work. You have to explicitly disable these old, vulnerable protocols like the ones you see listed here. Instead, you build a strong, modern bridge by enforcing the latest versions of TLS with these really robust cipher suites. This makes sure the data traveling between your users and your server is completely locked down.
Now, beyond just encryption, HAProxy can actually give the user's browser direct security instructions. Think of these as extra layers of armor. That first one, X-frame options deny, is a powerhouse against an attack called clickjacking, where a bad guy tries to trick a user into clicking something dangerous. Others, like content security policy, tell the browser exactly which code is safe to run. We're talking simple lines in your config that give you powerful protection.
So, the walls are up, but, an unguarded fortress is still pretty vulnerable. So now, it's time to post the guards on the tower. This is all about active defense, protecting our command center, watching for threats in real time, and being ready to fight back against an attack.
Every fortress needs a command center, right? For HAProxy, that's the built-in stats page. It gives you this amazing, real-time view of your traffic. It's incredibly useful for you, but it's pure gold for an attacker. The fix, thankfully, is as simple as this one line of code. Protect it with a really, really strong password.
And let's just be absolutely crystal clear on this point. The guidance is unequivocal. Never, ever, ever expose that stats page to the public internet. It should only be accessible from a trusted internal network. Leaving this thing open is like leaving the blueprints to your entire fortress lying on the front lawn for anyone to pick up.
So how do our guards on the tower actually see anything? Well, their eyes and ears are the logs. But as this chart shows, a modern logging strategy isn't just about collecting data. It's a whole cycle. You turn on detailed logs, you send them all to a central security system, and then, this is the crucial part, you use that system to actively hunt for patterns of abuse. It's all about turning all that noise into real, actionable intelligence.
And guess what? Our guards can fight back. This is one of my favorite things about HAProxy's power. With just a couple lines of config, you can set up rate limiting. In this case, we're basically telling HAProxy, hey, if any single IP address sends more than 100 requests in 10 seconds, just block them. It's such a simple, elegant defense against those basic denial-of-service attacks.
And that brings us to our final section. Because here's the truth. A fortress that isn't maintained will eventually crumble. Security isn't some project you finish and walk away from. It's a continuous process of disciplined changes and being ready for the day when things inevitably go wrong.
Inside any well-run operation, there are strict rules to prevent you from shooting yourself in the foot. And here are two of the most critical ones. First, as the slide says, you must validate your configuration before you deploy it. A single typo can take your entire site down. It's a critical step. Second, treat your configuration file like gold. Put it in a version control system like Git, so every single change is tracked, reviewed by another person, and approved.
Look, even the strongest fortress has to prepare for a siege. You can't just cross your fingers and hope an attack never comes. You have to be ready. As this timeline shows, readiness is a cycle. You define your likely threats, you develop your battle plans, your playbooks, and then you drill them over and over. That way, when a real incident happens, your team is ready to deploy that plan without a moment's hesitation.
So as we wrap this all up, I want you to remember this. Everything we've talked about, from picking the right user to setting the right HTTP headers, it's not just some technical checklist. It's the very foundation of trust. Following these steps is what creates a reliable, available system that your users can depend on, day in and day out.
And that really brings us to the final thought. The job is never really done. The threats out there are always evolving, which means your defenses have to evolve with them. So the real question isn't just whether you can build a secure fortress today, but how will you commit to maintaining its strength tomorrow and the day after that?